the owner of Duffy. He also just recently, played on first year farm in addition to row crop farming.
You are now watching the 2023 season of Farming with Duffy Ag. Welcome back to the channel. So obviously Commodity Classic's over. We're back. We're going to keep it rolling. We got plenty of things to do. It is going to snow, but I figured I should probably throw the whole fireside chat into one video. And you're here watching it, give you a rundown. So I got to sit with Kelly from Extreme Ag, and very aggressive, pushing the ball, and I'm very new at this, so it's always fun having a conversation. Audio quality isn't the best. I'm still fighting the voice, but we're getting better. But during it, so I was mic'd up, set you guys by the mic, tried to get you the best quality, but learning as we're at trade shows, because mics pick up on different sounds and stuff around. But long video. We'll dive into it. I appreciate it. And, yeah, you guys are awesome. I'm excited. Should have some moving content, and we're going back farming full time. So we'll see what comes of it. Before we get into today's video, we got to talk about today's sponsor, Ridge Wallets. So they hit me up, and they saw my old raggedy wallet. And this thing's been absolutely awesome to travel with. So for the last 3 weeks, I've been using this wallet. Got rid of all the junk, all the stuff that was unuseful in the wallet. So it can hold up to 12 cards. You got your money clip. I got both clips actually on. They have so many different styles. There's over 30 actual designs. Had to look it up. And because it's the 10th year anniversary, for right now you can get 40% off. So there's a link down below. Ridge.com/DuffyAg. It's been a great wallet because of how sleek and compact it is. Sometimes I forget that I'm having it in my pocket. So usually your old bulky wallet, yeah, you can feel that when you sit down, it gets tight, especially when you pack all the junk into it. So to get your 40% off, hit the link down below. Not only is it sleek, but it's also practical. So it's RFID blocking. People can't steal your information out of it. Like I said before, ridge.com/DuffyAg for 40% off, but it does end on the 26th, so go check it out.
So we're doing a little fireside chat here, just keep it nice and light. Hopefully we get a little bit of audience participation. Some slight heckling is appreciated, but not to the moderator. So we're joined here. My name's Rich Haynes. I'm the agronomy manager for the East Shore Sound. I'm just going to moderate this. Want to keep it pretty light. Just a couple of interesting questions about the state of ag, what you guys are thinking about, what's really interesting, what you've learned over the last couple of years. So Kelly's former NCGA winner, member of Extreme Ag here from Iowa, where he farms pretty significant amount of acreage, put over 350 bushels up, which is pretty impressive. No plans to stop there, from what I understand. I know he's implemented a number of regenerative practices, done some work with us on source, which we really appreciate. We're really glad to have you here with us today. Thank you. Chris. Chris is the owner of Duffy Ag. He also just recently, played on first year farm in addition to row crop farming. Comes from a dairy background, utilized a lot of source or some source on silage. So he does have an experience with us. He's also got a pretty active online presence that he uses to spread messaging, to growers all across the country. So we are happy to have you.
Glad to be here.
All right. So like I said, I want to keep things fairly light, 5-10 minutes or so per question, and within some time. We don't have to take a whole hour if we can. But I was just going to ask, what is the most exciting thing for you right now in ag? Technology, product-wise, what really gets your goal?
Agronomy is chemistry plus biology. And what I get excited about right now is I think we're honing in on getting the chemistry right. Perfect. It'll never be perfect, but we're learning so much about the chemistry side of it, which will make the biology side act better. The biology will respond, the chemistry's better. I feel like I've learned a lot last year about the chemistry.
Do you see that that's one of the next big kind of transitions in ag? You know, it was like, you know, the herbicides and the fungicides was precision ag, so then it's now is it really focusing on the soil and how we build that up? It was like, yeah, next.
You know, I think the average farmer thinks that to farm sustainably comes with a yield curve. And I believe that we're learning so much more about the soil now. We're kind of in the way of the soil. We're learning so much more about the soil that we need to get out of the way and we need to learn what the soil is possible about. And the big huge buzzword right now, everybody's talking about different biology, and it doesn't always act correct. Well, it doesn't act correctly because we don't have the chemistry right to do it. We need to learn how to balance the soil, not ruin the soil. Get out of the way in order to state. It's got a lot more potential than what we have given it. A lot more potential than we're giving it credit for. We need to figure that out. I feel like we're starting to that's what I'm saying.
I completely agree. Chris, what about it?
I would have to agree the technology not only on the actual equipment side, because we're vastly along with that, but there's a lot of places up from the Northeast that are lacking in being aggressive in the crop management side of it. So no-till side of it, cover crop side of it, and actually utilizing what's in the ground. With last year, urea prices pushed a lot of people to think outside the box. They're coming back down, but it's also created a world of people that realize you can do more with less in it if you let the soil do its thing.
So do you see that? Do you see people like adopting that more on their own as kind of this volatile market kind of keeps shifting? And do you see kind of more of a trend toward covers, toward regenerative practices?
I think when input prices are high, it makes people more open to adoption. But I also think, you know, that extreme ag is sharing that. We're willing to be the guinea pig, if you will, and do all those trials and talk about that, and we want to be a trusted source. Then we're cutting their learning curve, shortening it up, and that helps as well.
It's a good one.
Yeah, farmers are very skeptical, so we need somebody to jump in and actually
I don't
talk
believe
to.
it. No, I absolutely agree. So like, I know you guys are farming a little bit different area, central U.S., northeast. But do you see the concept being the same? That kind of soil, there's been not necessarily degradation, but just getting in the way. Is that like a nationwide thing in your opinion?
Yeah, balanced soil is balanced soil.
Yeah.
From the northeast part or the west central part.
And that's a world. It's all the same. Different types of soils, but the same ideas wrapped around.
So this is kind of a little, I didn't have this written, but you know, I know there's people outside of the U.S., Canada, other places that are kind of watching what you guys are doing. Do you see the practices that you're implementing here and trying to teach farmers about here, being able to help folks globally as well?
We're starting to get a bigger and bigger Canadian following. We now have an affiliate with Extreme Ag, Samuel Kutu. He's an outlander from Montreal. Released one video and had a huge response. The appetite in Canada is tremendous, and they're wanting to know more of the products we have, trying to get those legalized, you know, regulated in Canada and up there. Yes, it's a huge appetite.
I'd have to agree. So my time I spend in New Zealand, they're trying to catch up and figure out how to grow corn like we do in the U.S. because of their input costs, because of their grain costs of importing it. So everybody's on the same level as far as you've got to do more with less, be better at how to do. Because at the end of the day, that's your bread and butter. That's your future.
So I also have you. So what do you think right now? Some of like the biggest challenges facing your farm or the industry kind of as a whole. There's a lot of things, a lot of avenues you could go to.
Yeah. So this will be my first year farming ground I've never touched, farming fallow ground. So figuring out where I want to go with my soil as far as what I do first. I'll admit a lot of it I'm no-boarding plowing because it's been overgrown, neglected, and it's been in pasture grass ground for the last 15 years. But then moving forward, figuring out the best benefits of that. Cover cropping, especially on the rolling hills, that's a huge part of that side of it. And figuring out what nutrients really need to go. As far as challenges for my future, marketing corn, being more efficient with myself. I don't plan on ever getting to 1,000 acres, but I'd like to be able to do everything in-house. So relying on myself to grow more product beneficial without growing as a size. Labor efficiencies Those are the two biggest things that I'll always battle.
Do you see that as a typical thing in the whole industry when you're looking at that? You step back and kind of look at just across the whole spectrum. Is it labor, efficiencies, costs?
Yeah. So I sat and had lunch with a guy at 12,000 acres that he didn't have enough help. So becoming better at what you're doing, faster planters, more efficient with what your passes over every crop, less passes over crops, things like that. So that's the world. We're never going to get more help, and less people are in the agriculture.
And I'd ask your opinion. So, what do you think? Like, there's a bit of a disconnect right now between the consumer and the supply chain, where the food actually comes from. So, do you see that helping to be addressed by some of the stuff that you guys are doing, or is that something you think about?
So the YouTube side and the interactive side on social media, that definitely drives interaction with people that aren't in the ag world, and a lot of them are so disconnected that they have zero idea of what really goes on. They've watched the video, they don't understand, they think corn's horrible, they think we're killing the world, and at the end of the day, if we're killing the world, we have no future. So explaining to the general public and getting more connection is definitely where it is, because we're going to lose more people in agriculture over the next 10 years, and we're only having more people to the whole population.
What do you think? So, in terms of biggest challenges, I guess for you guys, and then in the industry as a whole.
I think it's labor and environmental regulations. That's potential environmental regulations. We, Extreme Ag, I would like to help tell that story and help write the story for the environmental regulations instead of accepting what's coming from a non-understanding public, just like this. Those are the two biggest problems about it.
Yeah, if you can be ahead of what the regulations are coming down and actually educate not only the politicians, the people putting it in, but the people that are backing it, that's going to be one of the biggest things, because once it's implemented, there's no turning around.
It's hard to back up.
Hard to back up. It is hard to back up. What do you think about like sustainability initiatives that are kind of driven by governmental organizations? Do you see those as being beneficial to the industry right now, or is it more of like not like a burden, but just like a distraction?
I think that they're okay. We actually just announced an Extreme Ag Soil Health Initiative that you're a big part of. One egg is a big part of the nutrient reduction. And the reason I wanted to do that, I was the original farmer to sell my carbon credits in the United States, December 1st, 2020. And I've been part of a few different carbon markets since then. But what we have is not a carbon market. It's a soil health initiative for sustainable farming, which is going to tell the story and show the true definition of what sustainable farming is, using products like Source. And I want to pay farmers for the sustainable efforts to farm in what I feel is the correct way, the sustainable way, the regenerative way, and help educate the United States and the world about what true sustainability is. So your question, I think they're partially right, but I think we should ask the farmer. Our initiative is written by a farmer for a farmer. It isn't written by somebody else that maybe doesn't always understand, like Chris said before, that very this guy does a good job.
I agree with you, Zach. So I guess here we'll shift a little bit, but so what surprises you the most about your job?
The larger we grow, things like that, and dealing with people, trying to get everybody rolling in the same direction, sometimes I think cows are smarter than humans, that can help, that happens, but the weather, trying to control the chaos and the surprises that come out.
And then on that same thing, like what's the thing that you kind of enjoy the most about what you're doing now?
I have a core group of employees along with my sons and things like that, and just working with those people, hand in hand, arm in arm, however you want to say it, to get the job done, the feeling of accomplishment, and everybody working together. Everybody's in the field, the combines are going, the grain carts, things like that. You're bringing in the harvest. It's a very rewarding experience.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether the panel is open to us or not.
Sure it is.
I just thought, why is extreme agriculture? Do I have to do extreme agriculture? Do we have to be doing extreme agriculture to build sustainability?
We have I would say, Extreme Ag is about trying new things, and improving your ROI. And the way that we farm to improve our ROI is sustainable. Lowering your dry P&K down, using products like Source, products like K-Fuel, other products that improve it, that we use agronomically, they're also sustainable. So I would say, yeah, you do.
Why you want extreme?
Why do we call it
Extreme
Extreme
is
Ag? Because we try things that are outside the box. A lot of people don't ever want to, they don't try enough, you got to move the needle to really learn. Most farmers are planting soybeans at 150,000 seeds per acre. I tried planting at 34,000 to see what would happen. That's moving the needle. It needs to be extreme to learn anything.
I agree. So it's doing a zero nitrogen plot. Sometimes is it the best option? Probably not, but you can't learn unless you try. So the same thing. What surprises you the most?
Well, every day is different.
Yeah.
Once you get into interactions like this, put yourself out there in the world, you start learning more and more from each other. As farmers, we generally share whatever we feel will help another person as long as you're there to help. So being in a situation like this where there's other people that want to succeed, want to grow, that every day is amazing like that. People that want to support the ag world. So I'm blessed because I have an influencer voice that I talk to people that are non-agriculture, but talking to a farmer and learning from each other, the world gets very, very small and you learn a lot from each other.
On that same note, what's kind of the thing that you enjoy the most right now about what you're doing?
So at the end of the day, I went from second generation farmer to starting my own place, to pretty much starting fresh and being able to figure it out and what I have for knowledge. So very excited for all of that, for what's coming down the road for agriculture. There's fewer and fewer younger people that are involved in it, so I feel very blessed that I do have this opportunity to go farming.
Let's talk about that here just a little bit. So as you said, there is a little bit of, you could call succession on the farm, like that kind of plan, but there has been a little bit of a shift. It seems to there haven't been as many folks coming back. There's some, but there's been a lot gone. So do you see that as an issue, and how do you think we start to push that needle back?
I'm very blessed. I've got 3 sons. They're all coming back. So I will tell you, my biggest job is to build an operation that was big enough to everybody would fit. I had some friends that were my age that wanted to come back, but the operation wasn't big enough for they want. So I think it's our job as dads to make it so they can. And that's it.
That's it. Take some ownership.
That's my most important job.
Making agriculture cool. That's the thing. Nobody wants to come back and be beat down every day and everything else like that. So having technology, not having the same backbreaking jobs that everybody thought agriculture was, has brought a lot of young people back. I have quite a lot of friends that came back to the farms and they weren't in good roles, they didn't have a good future, and they left and they took day jobs and they're off on the weekends, they're not working at 10 o'clock at night. So, but it's a lot about the passion side of it. But if you give them a good experience and give them a future that's going to work and benefit and be profitable, people want to stick around in the industry. So without giving them a future, giving them the size to grow and be able to farm, it's very hard to offer somebody they come back to the farm once you get out of school.
And I totally agree with that. And also, I was just thinking about this the other day. Like, a lot of people, like when I was in school, people were like, oh, if you're going into ag, you're farming. That's all you're doing. It's like farming or nothing. There's this whole other side, the data management side, the finance side, the technology side. Like, there's all these other pieces in ag that I feel like sometimes people just don't even really consider. And I'm still trying to figure out exactly how to bridge that gap. But I think people are starting to get there with, like you said, making it more interesting, more exciting, just opening the door for some of those things to happen. Like as we get drones and AI and all these buzzwords, people are starting to be more interested in my opinion. But along with that, like you've been doing this now for quite a while. A lot of people look up to you as what you're doing. What's your biggest? No, I'm saying I don't know. Well, what's old these days? I got enough gray. What's the biggest takeaway that you have in the last, say, 5 years or maybe 10 years that you really learned and really been able to implement? And
Instead of just going out like my dad did, my grandfather did, and spreading some dry fertility, going out and finding a good about the intensive management, now it's continuing to get more and more intensive. And what we see in our life, we get paid for that. It takes longer to find out because of all the fertility on the planet, but we're getting paid to do that. So what I've learned in the last 5 years is there's a lot more net money in doing better than instead of we're trying to do more. And after we figure out how to do better, then let's scale it up and do more.
what's your biggest takeaway? Yeah, so make sure what you got is working really well before you try to push it.
Let's try to squeeze every last dollar, net dollar, that we can out of that acre, instead of always trying to just do a halfway job and go get more acres. Let's do the best we can. There's a lot more net dollars there.
You're talking about bringing your sons back to the farm and expanding the farm. What do you do to create more business to bring somebody in?
So, we pick up acres when we can. We have a trucking business. We also have a cow-calf operation. We just recently opened a meat store, and we're going direct to the consumer with some of our beef.
So it was just giving opportunities of different kinds.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious. Do you have 4,000 acres, or do you?
When I started farming, my dad and I had 2,000 acres, and now we have 7. And that takes on. But the adding of the trucking company, the adding of the meat store, finishing the cattle instead of selling the calves, just trying to find anything with intentional congruence that just builds off the farm.
Diversifying your situation.
Right.
I keep a manure truck or 2 running, enough to keep the wheels from turning and things like that. But that's really where it is, because they're not going to make more land. You can pick up land, but at the end of the day, if you want to become more efficient, it's finding that end dollar to be better at.
So same question, what's your biggest takeaway in the last 5 years in the industry?
Last 5 years, be open to change, because it's moving a lot faster than anybody really thinks. So previously we did robots, and I worked for the robot company milking cows. 10, 12 years ago, it was a fairy tale. Nobody was milking them. I spent my time in New Zealand, and now everybody's automating it and moving along. So the technology of drones, technology of crop science, it's moving way faster than anybody would have thought 5 years ago. So 5 years from now, if you're not jumping on board and open to change, you're going to be left in the dust.
Well, that was going to be the other half of that question is, in the next 5 years, what would be your biggest thing that to someone who's listening to your show, or what 5 years from now, what do you think is going to be the biggest changes in ag?
All of the things we've talked about, just becoming better at what you're already doing, getting more out of the soil, and keeping that soil there, growing that soil to be better for the next 10, 20, 100 years from now.
So with that, do you see practices like no-till, like strip-till becoming more prevalent? Is that a knowledge thing in your opinion, or is that
I think it's a knowledge thing, an agronomic thing, and it could be a regulatory thing.
Yeah.
We better figure out that with agronomics and knowledge, because the regulatory stuff.
That's where you hope that you're right. You guys are the ones leading that charge on the regulatory side versus someone who's outside of that.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's a quick learning curve, and it doesn't end well.
Very short.
Yeah. Very, very.
So same thing to you. What do you think looking ahead to the next 5 years? What do you think is going to be your biggest?
I would think there will be a lot more AI. The biggest thing that I'm most excited about is what we're learning about the soil. And I don't think we know very much about it. And I can't even tell you what's going to happen, because there's so much unknown. But what we're going to learn about the soil in the next 5 years that are going to be good deals.
Yeah, there was just a quick little thing on that note. So I was chatting with somebody from Biomakers years ago. So they're doing a soil root interface, really trying to understand that genome. And they said in some aspects that we know more about the surface of the moon than we do about what happens in the soil root interface, which blows my mind.
Yes. Absolutely. It's such an infinite space that we just don't know much about. We really go back to potential.
And do you think that percentage, is that just because people were, it wasn't broke, don't fix it, this is the way my dad farms, this is the way we're going to keep farming, or?
I think it's a relative term. think you're right. It isn't broke, don't fix it. But what we need here is if they kept their noses clean, they made it work. But they should have it was broken because we didn't reach the potential. Does that make sense? As long as everybody was making a living, then they thought.
But why push it if you don't have to, right? It's like, oh, if you really want to move that needle, then you have to start thinking about something different way.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with all of that right on it. So it's the broke, don't fix it, but there's so much more to unlock that in the last 10 years you've done that. People are slowly evolving, and it's in the Northeast. It's a lot of regulatory things, water quality, stuff like that, that push farmers to change their practices. But if there's nobody pushing them, and they're making money, things are okay. They're not going to go ahead and invest all this money unless they say, "Oh, we can see something." So changing the mindset of a farmer that is of an age that it's worked all its life. Why bother?
So, just thinking about your farm, some of the farmers you've worked with over the last few years, like what do you think has given the biggest overall impact in terms of practice change or things that you've adopted on the farm that really moved the needle?
Variable rate nitrogen, variable rate seed, the irrigation, of course. The irrigation is a big deal. The plant growth regulators. Okay. All of those things were incremental changes. It could be a big change. The 2x2 fertility on there. Yes,
All of that. So if someone was going to start with one of those, where would you have them start?
So I have a frustrating question because it's a system, not a pieces of the puzzle. But one thing I would say, well, we get some source. If the source requires education, you need to turn down the nitrogen. That's a scary thing for farmers. The reason you turn down the nitrogen is to bring the carbon to nitrogen ratio 7 parts carbon per part nitrogen, and you're outpacing that with too much nitrogen. Turn your synthetic nitrogen down, put source on, double the economy, that great yield gain is still balancing the soil. So I would say source could be one of those answers. Another answer, source could be an answer with the right education. Yes. With understanding of what you're doing. Holy grail of farming raising corn, holy grail of raising corn, turn up the nitrogen. That's scary to say turn down the nitrogen. That's not a lot.
Yeah. Yes, it's tough to just say, hey, let's reduce fertilizer. Be like, whoa.
Exactly.
But then, when you start, like you said, having that why, the why and the how, then that's when that needle, you can see that click sometimes. It's like, oh, now I get it. You're like, oh, okay, now.
If there's a reason to do it, then maybe yes. That provides.
And then what about you? Like, we're in the Northeast, what do you think?
It's the same thing. It's all the pieces of the puzzle that you unlocked over the last few years. Putting the seed in the right spots, having the right nutrient management programs. We're heavy in dairy manure in the Northeast, and that was the thing. Dump manure, and then you're locked up with phosphorus, and all of a sudden you're behind on everything. And then the government's coming in and regulating it. So figuring out how to utilize all that better. Pieces of the puzzle. And if you have one little piece of the puzzle, you're not going to see the bigger picture.
And I like that analogy. I've used it in some presentations before, having like a puzzle, on the screen. It's like, here's your fertility piece, here's your drainage piece, here's like you have a salt salinity problem. Like, how do we address each one of those things to build that picture of a successful farm? So when you think about that, like you said, you guys have tried a lot of stuff. So what's something that you've tried that you thought was going to go good, but it didn't?
15-inch corn. So I put 15-inch corn and it did not yield better, it yielded worse. We thought it would yield better, it was a 9-horn harvest.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd have to actually agree. I tried 15-inch row corn 2 years ago, but with a 30-inch row planter just overlapping, and you figured drop your population, feed it some more, and it will be good. Ears were tiny, we're chopping corn, so it doesn't matter for us, but stocks weren't there, the tonnage wasn't there. I have a lot of friends that do it. I don't know if it's the cost of running the planter is beneficial. Twice as many units, twice as much wear for the end of the day.
Well, I know there was reading some stuff about 15-inch corn. They were saying, if you do 15-inch, you got a 9-inch inches or so between each plant. So the theory is you'll have
Instead of a 5.5-inch square, we have an 11-inch square, and we were geeking out about this. And my son and I argued that we better run the cops.
Yeah.
no, I'm not doing it.
It works in places, but definitely challenging.
So then when you start thinking about just like practice changes, so getting guys to go say from conventional to strip, or when you start thinking about, do we go down that road of adding in another crop to the rotation, we start thinking about intercropping, like what are your kind of thoughts on some of those things?
I think that Kip Bowles is one of the very first original high yield guys. And he said if you can't do research on 10% of your acres, you're already broken to start with. So you need to be doing research on 10% of your acres.
When you say research, you just mean something you haven't done on the farm, like let's do it.
You just named off several things, and those are all in the it can be hard to go around sheet to machine and try. For instance, put a few acres of winter wheat in, or corn and soybean guy, anything like that. Use source on an acre, something like that. But you should be doing research on 10% of your acre.
It's good advice.
Trying something to either say never again, or this is something that we can implement more and more.
But when you're going to try something like that, I'll be following your because we're going to move to that. You can't reduce your soybean population from 130 to 122 and say, well, I didn't see anything. Of course you didn't. You didn't do it.
There's not enough of a variable change there, so at the end of the day, you're just playing games with your own head. And then you got to be open to the change. If you see the results, either positive or negative.
Trust me.
Trust me. So, hopefully there might be, a few people that watch this outside of here that are not in ag.
Sure.
Right? So, a lot of people when they think of a farm, they're just like, oh, it's a farm. They got some land, they got some machines, they go forward. But when you think about your operation and how it's a multifaceted business and it has to be run as a business, like could you explain your thought process around like how you decided to implement new technologies or new products on kind of a large scale?
I always wanted to get better. And for a time, I didn't even know, when I was young, I didn't even know what better meant. We were just searching to figure that out. And then when we put in drip irrigation, actually came to the county class for the first time, started meeting new people, seeing new things that I had just never been exposed to in Western Iowa, and trying some of those products, and then seeing some gains and some successes, and running it that way, and doing a good job of the trials, trusting the numbers, trusting what you're seeing, and just starting to implement those practices, and then starting to scale them up with some success. But if you just start small and then build, I can't get that. Kind of different.
And then when you say so say you do research on 10% of your acreage, something works, like what's your typical ramp up? You go, hey, this worked on 10%, we're going whole hog. Or is it like, hey, we're gonna put this on 2,500 acres next year. Then we're gonna go.
If a product works for me but it doesn't work for anybody else in extreme ag, I probably won't implement that water or. But if it works for everybody in extreme ag, or I've got another neighbor who's also tried it with me, then I would count that as another success. So then 1 year I might go with all of it. Source used it 1 year on 300 acres, and I have a neighbor that has used it for 3 years now. This is 3 years. He's had success every year. We're going without John, without John having those successes, I probably
Another year of
I would have had more acres, but not all. Now it's not. We changed our anhydrous program on all the acres because of the trials that Mike Fish and John first.
Is your own anhydrous where you're at right now? You do fall or spring? Fall anhydrous.
Fall. We will have a little bit of good spring. We can't get it on, but I very much want it.
I'm guessing stabilize it, but why? Like, what's your thought process around fall?
So, anhydrous is undoubtedly rough on soil biology. The soil biology is very forgiving. So when we're applying it in the fall, after it's cooled off, the biology is growing, then when that biology wakes up again in the spring, it will have yield. That's why it's no question.
Are you concerned though about any of the loss potential?
No, we stabilize it, and we have a yield gain in the fall versus. So, the sun each way, potentially, all that goes be yield. And we're on a variable rate. The high yield area is on 180 pounds, the low yield area is 240 pounds. Now we have our the source, the high yield area is 80 pounds, and the low yield area is still 240, but but as we're still researching ways, I believe next year that'll come down to it. I have some ideas, but I just wasn't ready to do it yet. I don't want to prove too many things out.
Too many variable changes. You don't know when to change.
Right.
So same thing, I know, like, you like you said, second gen farmer, you got your own operation now. As you start thinking about how you shift that from to a multifaceted organization, as a business, like what's your thought there, how you are going to kind of approach your whole process?
Well, it's the same thing putting checks in and learning from your past mistakes. I like the idea of trials with neighbors because you're in the same general vicinity of soil. So moving forward, I got a lot to learn, and I'm going to learn it from other people at the same time. Switching up your. Right now, we're more plowing stuff because of the situation. That is not what we're going to do moving forward. Once we have soil that is ready for no-till, ready for cover crops or strip tills, things like that. But it's being able to have the mindset of going all in on something that you have seen good results on.
So, like I said, I'm from Indiana, so there's starting to be a little bit more adoption of covers, but there's still a lot of folks that do conventional tillage, don't cover. So when you're thinking about having conversations with some of those folks, and be like, hey, here's how I would approach you taking a couple steps in your operation toward regenerative practice. Like, what's your kind of process there?
We're 100% we're not QA. I used to know almost 100% rye or wheat. It's on the now you know 1/3 rye, 2/3 oats. Maybe probably everything you know was smaller than there's 2/3 oats, 1/3 rye. Oats will give you more fall growth. Rye comes back. You have 100% rye over it. It can be tough.
Yeah, it can get away from you really, really quick.
Yes, two-thirds oats, the oats doesn't come back, the rye does. Great calcium in the top, comes back to the spring. That's the change we have made.
So do you plant green in there? And then you come back, like how tall do you wait until you terminate?
We'll spray over the top. We'll spray over the top.
Right away. What's your thoughts on? I know covers are a little more prevalent down east, but not everywhere.
They're south of us, so Vermont's paid to cover, Maryland's paid to cover. We've always planted all in one crop, so that's pretty diverse that you don't have the whole crop that you're trying to kill. Granted, taking off feed in the spring and then planting into it is one thing a lot of guys have gotten to. You've got to manage that as your practice. You're planting later, you're battling different weather at that time. Covered, keeping something on the soil just makes it so much better of a situation in every aspect as far as weather issues and as far as soil health.
I wanted to leave a little time if anybody does have any questions or anything, but I did want to ask, so thinking about people that are either just getting into farming or kind of first-gen farmers or younger people looking to get into the industry, like what's your advice to them on what maybe they should think about or what kind of options or opportunities that they should look at for the next year?
You should align yourself with a grower in your area that can help you. A group like Extreme Ag, anywhere you can find information and shorten the learning curve so you don't have to be searching in the dark.
Every farm is looking for help. Find somebody that your practices, your mindset is the same. I'm very lucky that I get to interact with people that my age or slightly older that have a lot of support, that have gone through the same thing. And it's really putting yourself in a situation where you have support to move forward and there's a future. If you see the farm is not aggressive, not moving forward on anything, probably not the best idea to jump in and say, I want to go farming with them or help them out and learn their practices, because at the end of the day, they're not there for the long. That's the biggest thing. Somebody who's more aggressive that wants to teach the younger generation. There's plenty of help from USDA, stuff like that, farm credit, for younger farmers to get in. You just got to be able to ask the questions and know to work. So if you dig enough, you can get knowledge on any aspect.
Well, I guess go to that a little bit more, but like you said, you just kind of picked up the farm, so I guess it's an awesome step, right? So if someone else is thinking about that, wanting to do that, like what's something that you would tell them to kind of look for, look towards
That's land that's all together, enough that you can get started, but not enough to overwhelm yourself. That's really the big thing. Anybody can bite off way too much. Anybody can sign their name, buy all new equipment, put themselves in a bad situation, and then crawling out of it's the hard part. So,
JD Finance, real good.
they'll let you sign your name about anything. So,
What do you think's the right amount of acreage for someone who's just starting out?
So I figured I was going to do 200 acres this year, about 300 tillable acres. We are going to chop some feed. We do have grass ground, and there will be some beef associated. So it's really, what's your situation? What's your financial situation at that time? If you have an off-farm job and you're part-time farming, it changes the whole thing. If you're diving right in, you got to pencil your numbers out, and then at the end of the year, you're going to have money for yourself, not just to make the farm work. So it goes back to figuring a way to diversify, having an end product that you can sell for a higher dollar in the niche market, or utilizing other aspects of either agriculture or off-farm jobs.
So same thing, like if someone who's just getting into a first farm, or they're looking at getting into a farm, as to your point of maximize your ROI on your acres before you start trying to expand. What do you think's the right? Like, what's a good goal for someone?
Well, I think that's an incorrigible question. It depends on your opportunities, your desires, and your ability, financial capabilities. You might start with 80 or 40, you might start with 300. I mean, that would be more.
It's just making sure you have your goals set, know your job,
Don't overextend yourself.
leave some time for yourself, right?
Book work, office work, record keeping, figuring out your plan for the year. It all comes into effect, and there's based on where you're at in the world. Once you're out into farm country, there's different opportunities in farming in areas without it. So figuring out a good partner, good influencer that will get you to the right spot and be there to help you out.
Well, with that, we got a few minutes left. Does anybody have any questions for these guys, or anything you're curious about their operations?
You said that info on 2x2 was a piece of the puzzle for corn. Are you doing anything liquid on soybeans that you
We do
see
info
really
on soybeans as well, and the programs are basically identical between the two crops.
With your fall gas, cereal rye, are you a little concerned with that rye going after the nitrogen in the springtime?
But when you terminate it, and
You're terminating after planting, or are you terminating?
we terminate after planting.
What if it turns in, say, a wet spring where things are very well delayed?
That nitrogen can get taken up in that plant, but then when we terminate the plant, we'd like to think the nitrogen's still there, just in a different form. It doesn't come without its challenges at times, but I still think it's the best program we have. We also put nitrogen, you would say that nitrogen is tied up in that plant, it's going to take longer to get it back, but we also have nitrogen in our 2x2 to get us by until that elemental comes back.
Are you making a later pass sense, say a Y drop?
No, in our hills in western Iowa, we can't do that.
That's okay, Western Iowa.
My second pass is source.
Okay.
Any insect problems with green?
And we have what?
Insect problems with plant green?
No, we have not. We put an insecticide in furrow. We believe that the traits aren't working as well in the seed corn as they used to. And we have an insecticide in furrow on every acre, but no problems.
You treat everything too? Oversee?
Yes, seeds treated.
Well, any other questions for these guys? No? Well, Kelly, really appreciate you. Appreciate the talk, Chris.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Glad you guys came. If you got any questions about source, please come ask us. We'll be here, today, tomorrow. Thank you guys for sitting through this.
Appreciate you guys watching along on the video. Yeah, a little different, just talking back and forth, but it gives you some ideas as far as Commodity Classic, the people that really push the envelope there, and yeah, some insight of what's going on in the world of ag. So appreciate you guys. See you guys on the next one. Have a good one.